November was quite the month. Hello everyone, welcome back to a fictional escapist. My name is Kris and today's video is going to be the November reading wrap up for 2025. Now, this was the month of my release, which meant a lot of my time and energy was spent getting alpha ready to send out into the world. I'm still dealing with like physical copies and that at the moment, so my reading has been much better in December, but still there are things that are vying for my attention at the same time. However, I did manage to read 4 other things in the month of November, which I did not expect, but I had a good time with. This is certainly a month where I just let my mood take over and just picked up what I was gravitating towards at that time. And because of that, I read 3 things in here out of the 4, which I would not normally gravitate towards, but I'm glad I did because I had a fairly decent reading month with what I picked up. Now, the first one is going to be my book of the month, so I won't give a huge in-depth thought. Do I even do that with normal books anyway? Anyway, I will be doing a full sort of review and discussion on this one. Is it a review? I loved it so much that I won't accept criticism for it. Anyway, I digress. That is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, I never intended to pick up an Elizabeth Gilbert book, ever. But Joshana over at Joshana Reads has drilled it into me, and probably everybody who watches her channel, that you need to read this book at least once in your life. I was looking for something a bit easier to follow along with while I was working on my own novel, and I thought, you know what, it's available at the library, why don't we give it a go? I loved this book. When I tell you I love this book to the point where I can't even I don't want to critique it, I don't want to hear criticisms about it. It was just like the perfect book at the perfect time for me. This follows Vivian Morris, who is in her 90s and she is dictating her life. Well, she's giving us, the reader, a recount of her life in the form of telling a young woman whose father has just passed, who asks, "Who were you to my father?" And she sort of goes, "Well, to tell you that, I need to give you the whole story of who I am and how I became who I was to your father." And we get this dramatic and lavish and showy life of Vivian Morris, who was born, I believe, in the 1920s, and moves to New York after being kicked out of a pretty prestigious school to move in with her Aunt Peg, who owns the Lily Playhouse. It's a theater. And we get this very glamorous and dramatic look of in her life while she's surrounded by showgirls and plays and theaters and actors. We go through World War II. We see how that really changes the trajectory of her life, but it never changes her as a person. It's full of sex and love and just the intricacies of human nature and the friendships that women can have with each other. And I just adored it. I had such a good time with this book. It was 5 stars for me. I can certainly see the rereadability. It was so comforting as well. The audio was fantastic. I did this one on audio, and just the voice of Vivian Morris, I could have listened to her forever. Some of the criticisms I've seen for this book was that it's too long, and I highly disagree. I could have done with another 100 pages within Vivian Morris's world. I was just so enraptured by the ethereal voice, the unapologetic, "This is who I am. I have made mistakes, but I won't apologize for them because they made me who I am today." She was such a strong female character, and I love this book so much. So I will have a full book of the month review for that one coming your way at some point in the future. The next one I picked up was also a mood read, and this was sort of me trying to read from my shelves a little bit more, and that is Scorched Grace by Margot Doherty. And this is a whodunit. It's just a murder mystery. Well, yeah, murder mystery. And I bought this originally in, I don't know whether this is Rachel's and mine, fake honeymoon, because COVID was a thing, and we went to a place called Noosa, which is in the Sunshine Coast hinterlands in Queensland. And I saw this and I was like, don't even care. Don't care what it's about. That cover is amazing. I've since gifted this one to my housemate. So this is about a chain-smoking, heavily tattooed queer nun who finds herself sort of in the middle of a series of arson attacks that happen in the convent where she's trying to get her full. She hasn't taken like her full vows yet. She's been there for a year and she's working towards taking her full vows in the Covenant. And she teams up with local law enforcement basically to try and solve this series of arson attacks, which has resulted in a few deaths. I did this one on audio as well. I enjoyed it enough for what it was. It was nothing to write home about for me. I didn't feel any connection to any particular character, which is unfortunate. I think the concept of Sister Holiday is really cool, being this very dry nun who has come from a colorful background, and you do get a little bit of that background, but even with those emotional beats, I didn't feel fully invested. So for this one, I think I gave it a 3 star because I was like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I won't read it again. I will probably pick up the sequel when, now that I know what the beats of these stories are going to be, and just enjoy it for what it is. So that one is beautiful. Cover is beautiful. I am going to give this one to my housemate because she likes reading sapphic things, and we get a bit of sapphic backstory from Sister Holiday and her past. So yes, that one will be gifted to, and then or donated if my housemate also doesn't love it. But if I do the second one, there is a second one now, I will do it on audio as well. Then I picked up a polyamorous bi-plus romance, which is so far out of my wheelhouse that I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it. This is Triple Sec by T.J. Alexander. Now, I picked this one up for a book club, so a local book club here in Perth. We're doing this one, and I am trying, like, my big theme for next year, spoiler alert, is going to be community, and that means that extends to a physical community here in Perth. So I had done another project with one of the members of this book club, and she sort of said, hey, we have this thing going on, it's bi-monthly, and they were reading this book, and I said, you know what, fine, I'll read this book. This is the story of Mel, who is a recently divorced lesbian bartender who is not looking for anything. She's still sort of getting over the divorce, or I say lesbian, but there is actually, that's a big reveal, so I don't want to give any spoilers away. She presents as a sapphic, loving lady at the beginning, and she is immediately taken by a patron who comes to the bar called Bibi, who is a hotshot lawyer, and we find out that Bibi is in a relationship with her wife, but it sort of comes to light that they are polyamorous. And a lot of this story is about Mel falling into this relationship and working through the dynamics of being in a polyamorous relationship. Now, that is not my lived experience, so it was really fun for me to learn about a lived experience that is not my own through a fictional lens, and I always appreciate when fiction can do that, because this is not a story that I would normally jump into, but I found it was fun. There was a bit of spice in there, which I'm pretty vanilla. I feel like people who know me now know that I'm relatively tame, and this challenged me in a few ways, but not necessarily in a bad way. So it was fun. It wasn't overly abundant in spice, where if you're someone who doesn't enjoy reading that sort of thing, you couldn't sort of get through those scenes. I think there was 3 in total. What I liked about this one is it was just easy to read. It was a fun time. The book knew what it was doing. The author knew what they were doing with this one. There was a lot of inclusivity, a lot of diversity. We have non-binary people. Obviously, we've got quite a heavy sapphic storyline in there as well, and I thought that was fantastic as well. The conversations around polyamory were really respectful. I think when we went to the book club, we sort of had a giggle at this was a rule book on how to polyamory. It's presented in a very picturesque and perfect way, and discussing with polyamorous members of that book club, it does not always go the way this book has presented, but it was fun to sort of get a real life lived experience against what was presented in this book. But if you are a romance reader who just likes having a good time, you don't mind the concept of polyamory, even if it's not for you, or it's not your lived experience, or you want to learn about it a little bit more, if you don't mind a bit of spice in your scenes and being shocked at some of the intimate moments that can come from these spicy scenes, then you might have a good time with this one. I know people who are on this channel more geared towards like fantasy and sci-fi because that is what I read most of the time, but I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. And the last one I picked up was Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrick. This is the third and final book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. Loved it. I have really enjoyed my time with this trilogy as a whole. It's a book 3, so I can't give too much away, but I waited until I was ready to pick this one back up. I know that this year has been quite mood ready for me. I tried it a few months ago. I read like the first page and also my brain was just not comprehending anything because this story is quite complex. What I will say about this is that M.A. Carrick has this just indulgent, lush prose and world, and it's so beautiful. Like I can picture it as a visual reader, I can picture it in my head. All the characters in here are fantastic. I love the side characters well. Ginny, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm probably not. Ginny, maybe. Donea, again, I haven't listened to the audio, so I'm probably pronouncing these horrifically. Tanaquis, however you pronounce their name, they really shine in this book, and I think that's something that's really hard to do, is that these characters that really get to shine in their moments in book 3 are still side characters. At no point are they at the forefront of this book. But M.A. Carrick, the authors, have done this in a way where they get their little moments and we get like the closure, and we get to see their growth outside of the main story of, Renata and Fargo and Gray and everyone that we've been following for the last 3 books. This really has solidified itself as one of my favorite series of all time. It is just incredible. I would love to reread this at some point. I'm getting over my own bias towards rereading. I was saying to my mate Ryan yesterday, I do want to reread a fair bit next year, just to, things I haven't read in 10 years, things that I want to take more out of, and this is certainly one I can see being on my reread list. So those were the 4 things that I picked up in the month of November. What did you pick up? What do you think of my choices? It's a bit out of the norm for me. Let me know in those comments down below. If you like the content, give one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.